All right. So the guest and dear friend that I am about to introduce is an author. He's an authority on execution, productivity, and media, and he's also known as the media boss. He's a distinguished leader and a world civility ambassador with I Change Nations. He uses his unique gifting to serve and to help elevate the productivity and the leaders he works with. He has a strong background in media, working in radio, print, and television, and he also did a stint at CBS Sports, plus hosting and producing podcasts, including the Black CEO Morning Show, which we hosted for some time, Lunch and Learn with Chris and Barrett, and also Revenue Radio. And he's also been a dynamic guest on the 30-minute hour, the Linda Fostick Show, and the Power Podcast with Dr. George C. Fraser, just to name a few. But I'm going to tell you what I love the most about our guest is his commitment to showing influencers and thought leaders how to start and grow any business productively utilizing media. Please help me welcome today none other than Dr. Barrett Matthews. Welcome, Barrett.
Thank
How are you?
thank you for that. The fear stopped. How you guys? I'm doing wonderful. I'm doing marvelously well and improving.
Yes. Awesome. And so I always like to start off the interview session of the guests and share with people just a little bit about how we've met. And so I've actually had the pleasure to meet Barrett. Like it's been more than 14 years now that we've connected, about 12 years.
I lost
Just
something
about
like
a long time. And so one of the things as you guys came on, you probably heard Barrett kidding and joking, with me about, oh my gosh, I can't believe that this is you. There was a time when you were absolutely afraid to show up on camera, speak in public and all that stuff. And so I have to say, yes, how we both have grown in the space. And so I am super excited to have you here, Barrett, and to be a student, and to learn some of the things that you have done over the course of your time before I met you and even during the time that we've met to help you grow your business.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here. I'm glad you invited me. I always loved social media Saturdays, so I'm happy to see it.
Yeah. And I'm especially loving the new format. So one of the things, Barrett, I think I want to start off in asking you is our topic today is be everywhere all at once. How to enhance your media presence. So what is it that inspired you to develop your strategy for being everywhere all at once in media?
Well, okay, as far as that particular strategy, it's going to be a long story here. So what it boils down to is that with us as people who want to be seen, we are taught paradigms that I just think are wrong. We're taught to drill down on this one thing, and just if you keep doing it, you'll attract the people. And I'm not saying that you won't. I'm definitely not saying that you won't by doing that. But in a sense, to me, it's kind of arrogant to think that everybody I can serve is on this one platform.
Mm.
Because one thing I do know, and I think everyone can agree, is that everyone consumes information through one form of media or another. So if they consume it through one form of media or another, and you just focus on just one, then you're missing all of those people who could be your clients, who could be your friends, who could be helping you, all of that. So that's one thing that got me to that. The other paradigm I think that we do wrong, and you alluded to it a little bit, and I liked it because you were talking about finding out where your market is. I always say we're taught to find that client avatar, and we're taught, okay, wherever they are, that's where you need to go. And I say nix that. Know where they are, know who they are, know what they want, but make it so they can find you. Now, in saying that, that means you have to be on various platforms, right? So they can find you. But when I say know where they are and go, don't chase them. Don't chase them. Because here's the thing, everyone here has done some shopping before. You've done shopping. I mean, let's be honest. How many of you walk into a store and you get irritated when that person keeps walking straight up to you and say, can I help you? You want to come to them when you're ready. When
Yeah.
you're ready. So the bottom line is don't chase the people and hunt them down, say, can I help you? Can I help you? Just make it so that when they're ready, when they're ready, that you're there. McDonald's doesn't come knocking on your door saying, hey, Taria, we got some French fries to sell you. McDonald's makes sure that when you want French fries, you can find a McDonald's. So make it so people can find you. And in doing that, you have to be in various places. And when I say be everywhere all at once, that's what I mean by that. The example I use with a lot of people is that of Kevin Hart, the comedian. And I said, I don't care, because I hear people say, I don't like him. I like this. Then people say, I love him. I love him. Doesn't matter if you think he's funny or not. You would not ignore him. I can guarantee you that, but he is everywhere. And that is by design. So I say to you, why aren't you as a business person? Why aren't you everywhere? I mean, is it that you don't want to be found? Kevin understands that in Hollywood, you disappear like that. So he's trying to make it so he stays top of mind of the people that want to hire someone or that want to do business with him. So he's making sure that they see him. As a business owner, you should be doing the same thing. Make sure that people can see you, can hear you, can read about you, whatever. Just make sure that you are visible so that you stay top of mind. We all have those commercials that we've seen on TV or that we hear on the radio that get on our nerves. We hate them. But I guarantee you when that subject matter comes up, that commercial comes right up because it's drilled in your head. Drill yourself in other people's heads. Make sure that they know that you're there. And you can't just focus on one area because people use various forms of media. If a person listens to podcasts and you don't have one, you miss them. If a person reads articles and you don't have any, you're going to miss them, so forth and so on. So the bottom line is it came from the idea that I started out helping with media production for people, helping them do podcasts, helping them produce podcasts, which I still do. But I realized that wasn't enough for them, that they needed more. So what I started doing was producing more media and making it so they can be on various channels all at the same time and be everywhere all at once.
Okay, so
No,
it's great, right? And one of the things that's coming up for me, Barrett, as I listen to you talk about being everywhere at once, and you are bringing up some really crucial and critical great points. The question that stands out, and I get this a lot, is how do you deal with the overwhelm as an entrepreneur, a business owner, especially if you're new out there and you're starting? It could kind of be a little intimidating for, people to be everywhere all at once or overwhelmed. So how would you suggest that they handle that?
Well, I always say, create the problem first. Right now, one thing that the great Byron Golden taught me, he said the biggest cause of procrastination is anxiety. People have anxiety of, well, what if I get overwhelmed? What if I get too many people coming at me? But create the problem first. I guarantee you that when you create that problem, you'll also come up with solutions too, as to how to deal with it. You may have to hire more people. Well, if you got all these people coming, don't you think you'll be able to afford to hire some people because you'll have more clients? But create the problem. Right now, it's in your mind that it may be overwhelming to you, but you haven't even done it yet. In your mind, you may be sitting there thinking, oh, I got all these people coming. How am I going to handle it? But you don't even have that problem yet. And what you're doing is you're just freezing yourself from not doing anything when you could be developing it right now. And because I don't want to sound any certain way, but I've had people ask me, how do I deal with overwhelm? I'm like, I don't get overwhelmed. I just don't. So I can't say how to deal with it. And I think you might need a therapist or maybe because I don't know how to deal with that. And so that's not something I actually can speak on, but I can say that if you don't even have the problem, don't act as if you have the problem because you haven't even created it yet. It's like what if I get too big and I can't fit my clothes? Well, I haven't gotten there yet. So it's like I don't have to worry about that yet until I get there. And here's the thing. You may build it to the point where it's just the right fit for you. You may build it to where it's not overwhelming for you. But if you don't do anything, you want see Terry, I see what you're doing. You're going back to my whole productivity days too. I see what you're doing there. But if you don't if you don't do anything, then it's never going to happen. So I just say get started on building it out so that you can be on multiple platforms, and then you'll see what happens after that.
Yeah, and I do like that, because in some cases I see exactly that. Like, people do worry, there's some, not all, do worry and stay stagnant because they imagine all of the scenarios. I don't know what to do on social media. I don't know how to show up, where to show up, and in fact it turns in, to
Mhm.
them not doing
Not
anything.
doing anything.
Yeah, and then, you have others, like, they want to be everywhere, all at once, but might not necessarily, and you mentioned a couple of things, they might not necessarily have the team as yet to help them do that, the people
Yeah.
in place to support that, the tools that would allow them to support that. So hopefully we'll be able to get to some of those things that
Yeah,
we
yes.
all can do, to help with that in our session today.
And as far as having get a team together, get people who help you do. You don't have to do it all. You don't have to, as I always say, you don't have to, you can be the CEO, not the COE, the chief of everything. You don't have to do everything. You can hire people who are good at what they do and let them do what they do and pay them for their services. And that frees you up to do other things that you want to do when it comes to your media production or whatever you're doing. Just my first book was called Why Didn't You Get It Done? And I always say, in order to get it done, you don't have to be the one. So you can always outsource to other people who are good at what they do to help you to get productive and move along with things.
Okay, awesome. And so I do have another question for you. So how do you prioritize which platforms to focus on when you're just starting out?
Great question. I always recommend that people start with a podcast and have written a book. Just raise your hand if you've written a book. Okay. Now raise your hand if you've thought about writing a book. Okay. Now raise your hand if you've thought about writing that book for more than a year. Oh, okay, only one? Okay, good. So only the of you have just thought about writing a book. That's very good. But a lot of people have thought about writing books for a long time. They've been talking, I need to write a book. I'm going to write a book. And it never happens because they think about the writing process of it. Same thing with even just social media sometimes. We think we have to think too much about what we're going to say and how we do it and the strategy and so forth. But the reason I recommend podcasts first is because if I called on DeVere, if I called on Michelle, if I called on Horatio, if I called on any of you to talk about what you do and what you love, I might have to cut the mic off because you'd still be talking.
Yes.
Because it's easy for you to talk about what you love and what you do. That's why I say start with a podcast, because you can do that with your eyes closed. It doesn't matter. You can talk about what you love and what you do. We hit record. We got a podcast. Now I know some of you are probably thinking, yeah, but it's not edited right. It's not perfect. It doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be perfect, because just like in everything you do, you're going to grow in it. You're going to get better at it. And that's the thing, because here's the thing. I'm going to use an example. My dear friend Michelle here. Michelle used to host a fantastic show with our good friend Mr. Clark Garrison, and they started out together, and that they grew that show into something really special. But they didn't end the way they started. So you're going to grow. It's just getting started with it, and you're going to learn each other. You're going to learn how your audience is. You're going to learn a lot of different things. And that's the thing. It's just a matter of getting started. And once you get started and you start growing and getting better and better and better, then you'll develop who you are. But here's the one thing about that. Your audience is your audience. They don't care if you're perfect. As a matter of fact, they don't want you to be perfect. You know why? They're not perfect. They want to be able to see someone and hear someone they can relate to. So if you just get on and start talking about what you love and what you do, and your content is good, it goes back to Rhea again. And your content is good. They're going to follow you because they like you and you deliver content to them that they can take in and they like. So don't worry so much about everything else. Just get a podcast started. If you get it started, and here's the other thing. I want to phrase this correctly. Start a podcast. Of course, you would like to monetize your podcast. Everybody would like to monetize it. Most podcasts don't make a lot of money. I'm just putting it out there. Most podcasts do not make a lot of money. But don't do it solely for the money. Don't do it solely for the money, because most people, you're not going to believe this. You know how many episodes most podcasters do, Taria?
How much? 4. Wow.
4. They do a month and they quit.
Wow.
They do a weekly episode for a month and they quit. And so my point is, do it because it's something you love to do. Like I said, talk about something you love, but do it and be consistent with it, because just like in social media, you're going to get people when you're consistent. You can't post on Facebook and then expect people to follow you if you're not consistent. You got to be consistent. The same thing with media. So I always recommend people start with a podcast, and then you can develop things from there, because you can do a lot of repurposing from that podcast.
No, and I absolutely love that you're sharing this, Barrett. The part about getting started and being consistent and not looking for perfection in the beginning, and what stops a lot of people. And so for those of you, who are on here who don't know me and just getting started, this is our oh my gosh, 6th year of Social Media Saturdays. And when I started Social Media Saturdays, I didn't start Social Media Saturdays with the intention of monetizing a podcast or wanting to have a platform. I saw it as a way for me to serve my audience better. And just to share, people ask me questions about social media all the time. And I found myself answering questions every day, all day, and it was beginning to be a little bit overwhelming. And so I said, you know what? Let me create a space where I could show up once a week and people could just come, ask me questions. They could send topics, and I get on there and, answer questions around the topic and provide great information, tools, tips, and strategies. And that's what it started out as. And yeah, in the beginning, the videos were horrible. I do have to say that, right? Like terrible. Like if you go back to my old YouTube channel, is absolutely insane. But there's a reason why I don't take those videos down, or I haven't taken those videos down, is because I want everyone to be able to see that I too had a journey. So the person that you see standing in front of you this morning wasn't the person 6 years ago that started, and I had to grow into the role. I had to develop, personally, I had to develop professionally, all of those things. And so you are correct, Barrett, that a lot of people, get on social media, whether it's video, whether it's a podcast, or any endeavor for that matter. They do it once or twice, 4 times, like you said, and the pain, is uncomfortable for them, and they just sit in the comfort zone and not willing to step outside the comfort zone, in order to be great. And so, there's a saying that your greatness lies outside of your comfort zone. And so we could all switch our minds and ask, like, what am I willing to grow through? What am I willing to be uncomfortable at, so I could get better, so I could be great? Like, that's the question. That's what we're all up to. So thank you for that, Barrett.
Oh, no problem. Success and comfort don't mix. So
yeah. I love it. I love it. Okay. And so what are some of the key elements of your omnipresence blueprint?
Time you were breaking up a little bit.
Oh, okay. So I was asking you, so what are some of the, can you hear me?
Did you all hear?
Okay. Let me know when you're back. Okay. Can you hear me, Barrett?
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, you were freezing up and I was, yes, okay.
Okay, so I was asking, what are the key elements of your omnipresence blueprint?
Well, the one thing, like I said, you want to just start, first of all. Just get started. That is the biggest key. But like I said, I always like to get people started with the podcast, just to do that. Then I tell them to take that and repurpose it. Now, when I say repurpose it, let me go back to the podcast itself. Make sure your podcast is audio and video. audio and video. And I know a lot of people don't, oh, I don't want to be seen on camera. Okay, I'm going to say the same thing I just said on my Media Boss Live the other day. Get over yourself. Just get over yourself. That's your ego getting in the way. That's your ego getting in the way of your success. Nobody cares how you're looking right now. No one really cares. They want to know, can you teach them something? Can you show them something? Can you help me? The people watching have egos too. Guess what they're saying? What's in it for me? They're not caring about whether your hair is done, whether you look funny with your glasses. They don't care. They only care about what you can do for them. So do audio and video podcasts. Why? Because audio people that listen to podcasts are usually not the same people that watch podcasts. Mm-hmm. So now you have two audiences that you just captured. Two separate audiences that you've captured. Now, here's another thing. I want to address something they teach in the podcasting space that I definitely don't agree with. They tell everyone you want to, and you've probably heard this before, that when you're looking at podcasts, you want to look and see how many downloads they have, how many listens they have, and so forth and so on. And that's the audio side. They don't promote the video side as much, even though, here's the thing. You want to know who the biggest purveyor of podcasts out there now is? It's YouTube.
Yeah.
It's YouTube. So the thing is, video is king. You want to do the audio, but they're telling people you want to look at those download numbers on audio, and you'll get more sponsors, and they'll pay you if you produce more on the audio. Now, I'm going to dig into this a little bit first. Yes, it's true. Sponsors, if they see that you got a lot of downloads, they are more willing to pay you. You've got to get a whole lot of, when I say a whole lot, I'm talking like 6 figures worth of downloads to really start making some money, probably even 7 figures to really start making some money from an audio podcast. Here's the thing that the sponsors don't know. When someone downloads your podcast, your audio podcast, you have no idea who they are. You have no idea how to get in touch with them. Your content and your offer has to be so good that people act on it. Now, don't get me wrong. Statistics have shown that people who listen to podcasts do buy things that they've heard offered on those podcasts. They have heard that. But my point to you is, if you're pitching to a potential sponsor and they believe that, oh, how many downloads do you have? You can explain to them, I may not have a lot of downloads, but downloads aren't really what's going to get you in there, because we have no way of getting in touch with them. Now let's go to video rather. Many of you have a YouTube channel. Have anyone ever posted something on your YouTube channel and had someone comment on it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now, so that means you know how to get in touch with them.
Yep, absolutely.
That means you know who they are. That means that you can actually follow up with them. I tell people all the day, I would rather have 100 YouTube subscribers than 100,000 audio downloads, because I can get in touch with those 100 YouTube subscribers. So my point to you guys is, that's why you want to have audio and video, because you can capture 2 different audiences. Now, another thing that I tell them what we want to do after that is we want to break that up into clips so that we can have shorts. And those shorts you can put on your social media. Hello, you've all seen them. You've all seen people put shorts, that excerpts from their podcast all over the place, whether it's audiograms, or whether it's a video clip or whatever. And it's on TikTok, they're on LinkedIn, they're on Facebook, they're on YouTube, everywhere. And they get traction, because on YouTube, a lot of people go and see those shorts. And they see the short. I mean, it's pretty much like advertising. You see the short, it lets you know if you want to listen for more. So if you want to listen for more, now you got the whole thing right there too. And you want to put your links, and you want to describe on it, and you want to put captions on it. You want to make sure you have caption on it, because people, it's something about the brain and the eye, where when they're looking at the video, they want to see the words going by too. And because it captures their attention. It captures their attention. And so you want to do that as well. Now, keep in mind, when you're doing that, you can also take that podcast and you can transcribe it. And you can take that and turn that into a blog or you can turn it into an ebook. You can turn it into an article. You can take a whole season's worth of podcast and turn it into a book, a physical book. So you see, right then and there, what I've done is I've got you with an audio podcast. I've got you with a video podcast. I've got you with social media shorts. I've got you with a blog. I've got you with magazine articles. I've got you with an ebook and a physical book. Just from you just sitting down and recording a podcast.
Yeah. What I'm loving that I'm hearing from you, Barrett, about this is
Mhm.
that sometimes we can easily get stuck in the thing, okay,
Mhm.
which is doing the podcast. But
Mhm.
if you expand the mindset, is like, this is not just a podcast that I'm doing. This is not just this particular piece of content. I'm looking at how this content can fuel
Media.
my
Yes.
entire
Yes.
marketing. Okay. That's
Yes.
the thing, like that. When I realized that, it made it easier for me to show up and do the things, because I would tell people, and I say this all the time, and I know Howard is on here. One of the things, I'm better at it now, but one of the things that I absolutely didn't like to do is write. And so you would ask me, write a blog post, write an email. It's like, oh my gosh, I need to take a nap. Is tiring, like, oh my gosh, to do it, right? And then I realized, to your point, that it was so much easier for me to show up and speak about the topic that I want to talk about, the things that I love. And I could take, my thoughts, and then I could repurpose it into different
Yes.
formats. And so I absolutely love that you shared that with us today, because for those people who get stuck in, I know I need to do this. I know I need to be in video. I know I need to do a podcast. I know I need to be on social media. And they might be looking at the immediate metrics, like, I did not get a lot of views on here, or,
Mhm.
only 2 people, myself and my mom, liked my video on social media. So it wasn't a good video. And so people don't like my content. I love the fact that you said, if you start to expand and think that this can turn into different things, it could become not only your blog, but it could be social media content. So you talk
Yeah.
about the snippets for videos. What about your just regular social media postings?
Right.
One of the things that I love doing is taking our quotables. So we all have things that we say that
That's
are
another.
unique to us and our branding. And what do we do on social media? We go look for other people. We go quote
Yes.
the Brendan Burchards of the world, the Lisa Nichols. We quote everybody else except
Right. Right.
ourselves, that we don't believe in our own brilliance. And so there are things that
That's good.
we say, yeah, and that's how I've come to look at social media. There are things that we say that are unique to us, that our people are waiting, to hear, that our people connect around. And we just have to be mindful that when we do take these actions, that's what the actions are leading to. So,
Yes. Yes.
okay. All right. So I'm going to ask you, so what are 2 mistakes? I'm going to ask you, because I think you covered one, which was getting stuck and getting caught in the mind of wanting things to be perfect and worrying about all the things coming in the future,
Yes.
which, anxiety. What are 2 other mistakes that you see people make or entrepreneurs make when it comes to expanding their media presence?
Well, one that you just hit on actually is paying attention to those metrics, because sometimes they can be misleading. And I think that is one of the biggest mistakes I think a lot of us do. We pay attention to the metrics because we think that means that we're not having success. Understand something. People, I'm just going to go back to this podcast first. Podcast, most people do not listen to a podcast the day it comes out. They listen to it when it's convenient for them.
Mhm.
And that's the thing. They listen to it when, so a lot of us will put out our podcast on Tuesday at 9 a.m. and we're thinking, okay, 10 a.m. we're looking, I don't see anyone to listen to it. It doesn't matter. I have people that listen to podcasts I did 3 years ago, and they're commenting on it now. Thank you. I'm happy that they're doing it, because we get so caught up in the right now metrics. It doesn't matter right now. So that, and see what that does, it discourages people from going further. And so what I'm trying to tell you is that don't get caught up in that. Like I said, do it because you love doing it. It should be fun. It should be fun to talk about something you love doing. When it doesn't become fun, you shouldn't be doing either one of them. So just stop doing it if you don't enjoy it, because it should be fun. Now, one way to the people, another mistake people make is that they get in their way they're getting in their own way when it comes to thinking of what they have to do. As far as, I don't know if I can talk that long. I don't know if I have that much content. Let me tell you something. What Taria is doing right now is one of the easiest things. Here's the thing, we're here on this thing together. I'm doing most of the talking because I'm the guest. Get a guest. Interview people. They can carry most of the talking for you, because guess what they're doing? They're talking about something they love. And get guests on your podcast. Another thing you can do, get a co-host. I've known some people who do a whole panel with a bunch of people talking about topics. And that's the other thing I want you to understand, is that a lot of people compare themselves. That's another mistake people make. They compare themselves as far as their media. Don't do that. There's no cookie cutter way to do things. Mm-hmm. Some of the biggest successes in television, radio, podcasting, whatever, print, but when someone does something that's different than everyone else. Yeah. So don't worry about whether you're just like everyone else. Remember, your goal is to make sure that your audience gets the content that you have to offer, and that they follow you. And another thing, going back to those metrics, something you alluded to, people are saying that, oh, I only had a few people on here. Well, let me ask you a question. If someone asked you to come speak in person, and they were, I don't know, down at the hotel, and you said, how many people are there? And they said, about 50 people here. Would you be discouraged because there's only 50 people? No.
That word only gets you all the time.
Right. You would get there and say, hey, I got 50 people that I can offer my services to. This is great. So if you got 50 people in front of you online, on your podcast, on your video, that's great. Congratulate yourself, because you got 50 people doing it. Don't compare yourself to the Joe Rogans of the world, who has Spotify putting up $2 million behind him to make sure that he gets all those people. Don't compare yourselves to the people out there, to the Ayana Van Zant who have all these people on YouTube. Don't compare yourself to those people. Stop comparing yourself at all. Just go ahead and do it and develop your audience, because the mistake you're going to make after that is quitting. Yeah. So just don't get into all that stuff. Just do it and have fun. Enjoy yourself.
Yeah, I love that, Barrett, because, they say nothing kills dreams faster than comparison. And, we're here and we're talking about media, and social media especially. That's one of the biggest traps, or one of the biggest things that I see people making all the time is comparing themselves, to others. And it's interesting because they compare themselves to top brands or bigger brands. And now there's nothing wrong with having an influencer. This is what I say. This is world according to Taria. There's nothing wrong with having an influencer that, you follow, you like, and you aspire, to be like, okay? And so they're all people that we all could say that we would definitely love our brands to grow and develop, right? But by no means, should you sit down and compare yourself to someone who has been doing the thing, who's been in media or established a media presence for 50 years, and you're just starting out in year one,
Woo.
one, and you're like, oh my gosh, I don't have, 1 million subscribers as yet. One of the things that I've come to understand and learn is that we don't necessarily know the length of time it takes someone to build up that audience. What we see is just the number, but how long have they been doing what they're doing to get the audience or to get the subscriber
Right.
that is? So yeah, I love that you share that. But I want to stick here for a second, Barrett. So you
Mhm.
talked about, some of the metrics that we look at,
Mhm.
and those metrics doesn't really give a true picture of success. What are some of the metrics that we should be focused on when we are positioning ourselves in media, whether it's podcasting, social media, other media platforms? What should we be paying attention to?
Well, first, I think you need to ask yourself, what is your goal?
Mm,
What is your goal of the podcast or the media or the TV show or whatever or the article? What is your goal? Is your goal just to be known? If your goal just to have people see your face, is your goal for just people to hear your voice, or are you in it to get clients,
mhm,
to get business? Because if your goal, because I mean, I'm talking about your end goal, not just the goal of putting it out there. What is your end goal? So if your end goal is to get clients, and based on what I've heard from the people as they introduce themselves, I think that will be all of our goals is to get business and get clients, to put out our social media and all the media we're putting out, then that should be your metric. I mean, and it's very simple. It's like how many leads are coming in? How many leads am I converting? What's the average value of each client that I'm bringing in from this? And so that way, if you, as our friends used to say, what gets measured, it gets managed. You need to be able to manage that. Your media is just a conduit to where they come to you. So you need to figure out from that how many are coming from social media, how many are coming from podcasting, how many are coming from my blog. And that way you'll know what's working and what's not. Does it mean that if it's not working as well that you quit? Not necessarily. It just means you may need to tweak it to make it so that more people can relate to it. But that if you know what your goal is, base everything on those metrics because your leads, your sales, how many are converting, what ratio are you converting, and so forth. And so if you can figure that out, then that's what I think you should be measuring it on, not necessarily the metrics they put out there. Because I have someone I work with right now, and he has a potential sponsor who wants to see all these metrics from his podcast. And we've had the discussion. He said, I know that that's not really what matters, but that's what they want to see. And it is funny to me because a lot of these people who are in the corporate world, so to speak, they have been taught this, but that's not really what matters. But now, if you ask them about the metrics that corporation, I bet you they're going to tell you about sales. They're going to tell you about sales because that's what really matters to them. But when it comes to podcasting, they think it matters about downloads, and it's really not. It's about how many people you can get in touch with. So that's really what I recommend on that.
Well, and Barrett, it's really good that you're mentioning this, because as I asked the question and you started off your answer with
Mhm.
what's the goal, immediately I went to my board. So I have my board right in front of
Are you
me.
going to share your board with us?
One of these days, that means I would have to flip my camera around, and I don't want anybody to see what's underneath the board.
Tune in for the next social media Saturdays.
I will take a picture of the boards, maybe post it. But like exactly what you're talking about, directly in front of me, I have my goals. And as I take a look at, what it takes for me to fill my mastermind, right?
Mhm.
So like that's the goal. I have an amount of people that I want to be inside of the mastermind. The plan is laid out. How am I going to get there? And I'm looking at it. And one of the things that I have on here, well, I have a couple of things, but one of the things I have on here is 50 reach outs a week on social media. Can you just imagine that? 50 reach outs a week. And when you break it down, that's like 10 reach outs per day.
Mhm.
My platforms that I focus on, Facebook and LinkedIn, that's just 5 people per day on each platform. And so I'm going to condense it and I'm going to say this in the promotions of Social Media Saturdays online. This is what makes, the goals, so easy to get to. And the goals is what makes doing the things to get people on here so easy to get to, because as I
Yeah.
work through it and every time I glance up, I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. I have to get people on Social Media Saturdays. It's great to put up an event on LinkedIn, but I gotta go reach out to people. I have to introduce, I have to look for guests to come on. Who can
Yeah.
I connect with and everything? And so as I do all of these things, I'm fulfilling those goals. And so I absolutely love it. So now the metric isn't just, how many people I have on here. Like I know I want to have, as many people as I can on here. My goal is
Yeah.
to have a session where I have 20 people minimum on Social Media Saturdays, just letting everybody know, minimum 20 people. But the thing is, I'm also hitting other goals as I continue to work on this one particular process in my business. So thank you, so much for that. And
No,
so,
you're right. I mean, I don't want to piggyback on that because what I helped do to build my LinkedIn community is I would go every day and try to connect with 25 people. And that was an everyday thing. And I just built it organically in doing that so that I built up my LinkedIn following and it worked. So and I would I'd send a message to each one of them and said, hey, I'd love to get to know what you do better. And some of them said yes. So it worked out that way just by doing it organically. So I liked the way you did that.
yeah, awesome. And so I'm gonna give you an opportunity now to do just a little shameless, promotion. Can you just share a success story or testimonial of someone who have implemented this strategy and saw remarkable results in their business?
Yeah, I got a couple of them. One, whose podcast we've been producing for years. I mean, shoot, gosh, I don't even know where they are right now, but I know over a year ago they went over the download mark of 40,000 downloads on it. And but the thing is, what happened was they um they got recognized for their podcast. I don't even know that they entered anything, but they said they got an award for their podcast, and which was cool. And I'm like, that makes me proud. We're producing it, and they've been doing a lot more with that. They're getting speaking engagements because of it. Another person that we're doing, we actually are getting her more podcast interviews because of what we've produced for her with her video podcast, her audio podcast, and we're actually doing her social media clips. So she's getting more notoriety. She's getting more people asking, can they interview her? She's also getting more speaking engagements where they got her traveling all over the place because of that as well. So I mean, I'm very proud of that. And one of the people whose podcast we produced, I just like this idea that the person they brought someone to me, and I hate that they stopped doing their podcast, but we got a chance to produce it where they were interviewing celebrities such as Melba Moore, the R&B singer. Um, what's the other one? Martha Wash, who's an R&B singer. Everybody, some of you may not know her name, but if you know the song "Everybody Dance Now," that's her voice. So she is and that they interviewed. I remember the show Happy Days. Ralph Mouth, Donnie Most. They interviewed him, and so they interviewed celebrities. So I'm like, cool. We got to produce those shows, and even the music group, the Spinners, were a guest on it. So we got to produce those shows where so it made it was kind of fun to just be able to be a part of that. And I would, and also Taria, as you alluded to, I'm a behind the scenes person too. So I like doing that stuff. I like the production part of it. I can do on camera, I can do on the mic. As Devere knows, I did that all in college, but I love being behind the scenes. So it's just fun watching the process come together. So I enjoy doing that. So that's what we do. And just my company's Media Boss Pro, and we do that. So we help people to produce media to make it so that it can be everywhere all at once.
Yeah, I love it.